Hey everybody, welcome back. It's Food News and Chews Radio. Chef Jeremy Ashton, Sylvia, Norma, everybody. So today's show is going to be a little different because normally it's all about food, but today it's going to be more about food locations, specifically haunted food locations.
And places people can go for vacations, staycations. You can
road
stay
trips,
in Lexington. You can
all
go
around Lexington, all around
as
Kentucky.
Paducah. You know, Paducah's far, but it's a great town to go to, great culinary scene, and some haunted places. But I have 9 places here in Lexington. Where
These are ghost guarantees, right?
Ghost guarantees.
Like you're going to see a ghost.
Do you want to hear about these?
And by the way, in the second half of the show, speaking of ghosts, we're going to talk to Leo York of the 13th Floor podcast, and he's going to talk about other haunted locations all over the state. But you got 9.
I got 9.
In
Okay.
Lexington.
Some of these you'll know.
Okay.
9 haunted places. This is official. I mean, there's probably others. Yeah. Transylvania is probably the most well-known. Well, you know where the kids go into that.
Wasn't
tomb.
Dracula from Transylvania?
Transylvania translates into a forest is what it means, in the Transylvania forest, which I was in once.
So there was a forest there?
Transylvania is a portion, borders on, it's in Germany, Romania, and some places like that. So Dracula is from there. So because of the name, I think Trancy. But Ruffenesque put a curse on Trancy.
Was it for failing an exam?
There is a male in gym shorts that appears. A male in gym shorts. Okay. Now, there's the Don Young farmhouse, which I don't know anything about.
No.
So anyway, but the John Hunt Morgan house, built by John Wesley Hunt, died of cholera, just kind of a sudden death, and he roams the house, apparently, the Hunt Morgan house, which is used as a venue for a lot of events. And
I've catered there. Yeah.
You watch out.
Watch out.
John Morgan will get you. Lexington Cemetery, that's no surprise. People hear shrieking.
Really?
And it's a very old. If you've ever gone around, and I have a friend
It's a beautiful cemetery.
Yeah, we like to go around and walk there. I mean, you'll see headstones from the late 1700s, early 1800s.
And who doesn't love a haunted cemetery?
Right.
I mean, it's like, de rigueur.
I will say, it's one of the Lexington Cemetery is one of the most peaceful feeling
and it's
places.
Beautiful.
It's a very peaceful place. I know it's a cemetery, but it just has like an air of peace around it. I don't know why.
It really does accomplish its job.
Yeah.
But the mausoleums and various places are said to be haunted. And these are usually people, like we'll hear from our guest, Leo York. It's usually like apparitions. What am I trying to say? Women in white dresses. And, it's so interesting to me. I mean, who sees this stuff? And is it some sort of energy field? And it really isn't? I mean, I don't know. You said you believe in ghosts, right? I'm skeptical. I don't know.
Gosh,
I'm
an energy guy. Laws of physics, energy can't be created or destroyed. There's something about a soul's energy that I don't think ever goes away.
I don't think we know.
I don't think it ever stops. It's always been. I think it always will be.
I kind of like the string theory approach to it. Is that all time exists at the same time? Time is not linear, so it's all kind of a knotted ball. And what we see as a ghost might just be a glimpse into the past that we can't quite comprehend.
Well, I mean, there are time dilations in the kitchen. You ever tried to watch a pot until it boils? I mean, there really is time travel that happens when you're baking.
And they say, 99% of our brain isn't really used?
Right.
I mean, who knows what we're capable of knowing?
It's probably all around us. We just don't see it.
Yeah,
I'd say for most people it's more than that.
And
part
some
of their
people
brain
are more
used.
sensitive to stuff. Griffin Gate, I talked about the Blue Room, Greta hanging herself in the Blue Room, being rejected by a suitor. And they say if you go in the Blue Room, I've been in there for receptions and various things, didn't even think about it. But you can hear noises and a chill in the air and lights flicker and nowhere else in the building will that happen.
So I don't know. This is probably not a question for us, but let's say you've got a haunted restaurant, right? And is it okay to maybe have, say, a priest come in and bless them? Does that get rid of
sort
the
of
spirit?
Exorcism?
Would you ever want to get rid of your 100-year-old spirit in your restaurant? That's a tourist attraction.
People use it as the ones that he will be talking about. They attract tourists, and and just. I think play it up because it's kind of fun.
I mean,
What
you
if
know?
they're like stuck there and they could be saved by the priest and the blessing, and you're just trapping them up
But
there?
also, it's a dog eat dog world. And
Yeah.
you gotta get customers in the
Dog-eat-dog.
door, and like
It's
that-
competition
Whatever
stuff,
If a
man.
ghost is
People
going to
are
help
fascinated.
you, sell a couple more plates of pasta, aren't you going to do it?
The
I
VA
like the way you
hospital.
think. You're a businessman.
Yeah.
The VA hospital. Very old.
Oh.
Of course, that's probably a place
Yeah.
you would think insane asylums would
don't-
also be listed there too. So the VA hospital has the same thing, screams. all
Maybe
of those
the
kinds of-
energy there is different. Yeah. That could
Yeah,
be-
it's negative energy.
maybe.
Because one thing we'll talk about is haunting doesn't necessarily have to be a bad thing.
No.
It can be a wonderful spirit that comes back from a family member or something.
Let me ask: would you be more likely to go to a restaurant or a pub or a hotel if you thought it was haunted, or if it
yeah,
had
I
the
think on a
reputation?
certain kind of a day I would.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it'd be old, and it's sort of like Old Talbot Inn. It's just old and fun.
And that's one of the places
Jesse
on the list.
James, I mean,
Yeah.
So one thing I've never understood is the bridge between paranormal and, say, witchcraft. How
Yeah.
the potions and the elixirs and the ingredients and the stewing turns from the physical world into the spiritual.
That's right.
Like how do you go from, where's that connection made?
think that's
what's in
fascinating.
the ingredients? What's in the cooking
and you
method?
got some
Why?
ingredients. The last one is the Campbell House.
Oh yeah.
Two
That
women were murdered in the Campbell House, and their spirits roam.
Wow.
So that was the
So
list.
when it gets to the apothecarial approach to it,
Right.
when you think about it, cooking and making from the physical, it's not that different. You're taking ingredients, you're putting them in a pot, you're
I think
cooking.
of a cauldron.
Right.
No, and all right. Granted, everything on this planet is an ingredient, right, to cook.
That's
I mean,
right.
this is God's plan, and this is everything on here is our bounty to use, and this is what elixirs are. It's depending on the plants and things. It could help with grounding or anxiety or depression or grief. Anger. So there's obviously ingredients that change your emotional or your energy levels of some sort.
Sure.
So I don't know. Is it part of the properties of the ingredient that changes your vibrational level to experience more, or is it something in the
what
ingredient?
are some of the ingredients?
Well,
Tell us about
all right.
some of these.
Some of the ones that are used most often are brandy or cider vinegar, like apple,
Okay.
raw honey, roses, lavender, chamomile, lemon balm, St. John's wort, yarrow, tulsi, and hawthorn berry. So that's just kind of,
Sedulous sage.
baneberry, bat drool.
Bat drool.
I mean, these are all witch potions.
I think part of
broad
it
bean
is-
juice, chokeberry for enlarging.
I think part of it is that we maybe for for eons, for hundreds of thousands of years, people used plants for healing, not knowing why they work, just knowing that they did work. And if you go to the rainforest, there are things in there that they know have medicinal properties that the people who lived there knew about, but they didn't understand why it worked. So when you don't know why something works, you just think it's magic.
Right, and
Yeah.
some of this stuff involves steeping,
Yeah.
not cooking. Some of it involves
And that would bring to
making
my
a
mind
tincture and alcohol.
Odor, the smell. And
Right. So a lot of these aren't just you just eat them. You have to do specific methods of extraction. So
Well,
to speak.
also in a lot of these, there are foods that grow naturally that people said you ate these and you would commune
Yeah.
with God, and now we realize they were psychedelics.
I was going to say mushrooms, things
Mushrooms.
like that. Yeah.
There are all sorts of
And-
psychedelic plants and even like certain animals that you could get psychedelic effects from, and maybe that's part of it.
And they're starting to say that these things are effective with mental illness.
Oh, sure.
They're actually becoming legitimized.
Yeah, there's a reset that seems to happen on a lot of emotional levels,
There's-
and I don't know if you're getting in contact with some kind of different dimension, or,
Right, so
or if it's
again-
just
Maybe
chemically
that's
changing
opening
your
up that brain, the
Maybe
99%.
Things work for for reasons we don't quite understand.
They say that
Right.
people are not as fearful of dying once they've gone through one of these medicinal applications of hallucinogens.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe that's what you see is that, hey, this isn't the end. It's just the end of earthly existence. But there's something beyond that we don't know.
Well, we've heard theories of government research on
Yeah.
DMT, like that it's released when you die, and that's the gateway drug that transport you to another dimension?
Yes.
What?
You-
I don't know.
Ending, that energy goes somewhere.
You're right.
Well, now in places that have decriminalized, we know specifically mushrooms. It's a food show, so we'll talk about mushrooms. Mushrooms,
right.
yeah. So in places that have had decriminalized psilocybin mushrooms, there's actually a few others that also produce effects. They now have guided clinics
guided.
where you can go on a guided trip, and you rent the room. You have you have a shaman, but you have a doctor or a nurse that helps guide you through the right dosage.
Because so it doesn't get out of
Yeah,
control.
people are doing these ayahuasca camps, DMT, stuff like that, and it's making huge healing. Like they come out of addiction or severe depression. I don't know,
Ayahuasca is very interesting because you talk about the culinary applications. Ayahuasca is two separate things that need to be extracted in very special ways and then combined.
Right.
And you think about all the combination, and they've known about ayahuasca for thousands of years in the rainforest, but how they discovered these two things when cooked together and then produce it.
Yeah.
You're going through, you live in a place,
don't know, do we?
you're trying everything, and you realize certain things work and certain things don't.
Yeah, no, I mean, that whole process of knowledge, it baffles me. Like, how do we learn to make cheese?
Right,
I mean, like, you got milk, you got rennet. How
Yes.
did you think to put that together and you form cheese?
that's
Right. It's always by accident, right? You just notice.
They say there's 4 kinds of potions: love potion, restorative potion, immortality potion, and a hallucinogenic potion. And then there are curses,
And curses.
where you have that cauldron and you're like
Toil,
lighting stuff, and
trouble.
you're like,
Yeah.
I don't know, I've never done one.
So here's some witch potion ingredients. I don't know what this is. So bat wool, that's fibers gathered from a bat. Bee's brain, the sliver of a bee's brain.
If you can
It's
find
for a
it.
levitation potion.
Yeah.
Yeah, beetle's blood. Blue leaf, broad bean juice, bungle shell, carnivorous plants, cat traps, chokeberries, claws, cobwebs, cockroach shells. This is just cool stuff.
Yeah. Do you want to know how you can do a potion with your kids?
Yeah.
Okay, you put in dragon scales.
Ooh, I
bark.
like that.
Easy to
Tree
find.
bark.
Tree bark.
Oh, okay.
Tree bark.
Okay.
You put in fairy needles, pine needles.
Okay.
You put in rabbit droppings, raisins.
Oh, okay.
You put in the ground eye of a newt. Oh, I don't have what that is. You'll just have to figure that one out. Witch's fingernails are pistachio shells.
Okay.
I think about it. That's cute. Mountain dust, which is flour.
And
Don't
what do you
love it?
make?
So
You make a potion.
It's a little potion.
It's
See,
just kids
But how does
making
it? Do you
a
have to
potion.
cook it? Is that one of those
Actually,
things?
I remember my kids making potions. I don't know where they picked that up.
I always
You mix
wanted to
it
write one of
together.
those little books that's, like a scavenger hunt / recipe book for kids. It'd be fun. Potion recipes.
I mean, you can go out and get all these ingredients, and your kid makes a potion. I just remember my kids
So
being
I've got
fascinated by that.
I've got one that we could maybe use when we need a memory boost. This is a memory elixir.
okay. Ooh, I'll
This
take
one
notes on
actually
this.
is supposed to be legit. So, brandy, raw honey, rosemary, lemon balm,
It sounds
calendula
like-
petals,
yeah.
oat straw, and peppermint.
So again, that seems like one of those things that what is it? Is it ginkgo? Is it
Yeah.
maybe ginseng? One of those that people took and thought was medicinal, and then realized, oh, it actually has qualities that can help your
Totally.
brain or help your mood, or
Yeah.
they're
Yeah,
actually.
I think there is.
And
Food
there's
is medicine.
there's a line until you understand why something works. Science seems like magic. If you didn't know how this computer worked, you would go, "This is
It's like a
magic."
kind of magic.
And then you go, "Oh, here's why it makes sense." So I do think there's a line there. And the culinary arts, I mean, that's how you
It's
got.
mixing things.
Yes.
Science creates different.
all
kinds of
related.
things.
When I first started looking at this stuff, the first thing that came to mind was Foxfire, that whole series
Yeah,
of books,
that's right.
and how it's kind of the
Make things from the
how-tos and
earth,
instruct.
yeah.
Yeah, there's got to be some cool stuff on ginseng and different things
Sure.
in there. So,
And
look at those.
ginseng grows in Kentucky, right?
Well, yeah, you go up in those mountains, man, and find ginseng.
There's ginseng, there's ginkgo. They all supposedly have some kind of benefit for you.
Yeah, sassafras. We didn't get to. I don't think we're going to get to this one, so I'm going to mention it.
Okay.
Mackey's Music World of Wilder.
Bobby Mackey's.
Bobby Mackey's.
Yes.
America's Honky Tonk. I mean, it sounds wild.
Supposedly the
And
most
his
haunted
best
place.
damn band plays real country, come for the ghosts, stay for the music.
Now, supposedly, it's one of the most haunted buildings in America, and also is home to like poltergeist activity.
Yeah.
Where the ghosts can get pretty, from what I understand, pretty violent. But not in a, I don't think any patrons, but it's a place where there's scary stuff that happens, allegedly, for the people that, that study this kind of stuff.
Well, it sounds like a place to go to. I mean, it sounds very interesting.
Would you want to go, like, even if you don't believe in it, would you want to go if a place had like a scary reputation for hauntings? Would you want to go and risk it?
Depends how scary it is.
Down to like 3 p.m. or like 3 a.m.
Well,
on, Halloween night.
Let me just say, walking into a mall right now is probably scarier than...
Well, you probably have a better chance of... Never mind.
Never mind.
Right, yeah.
So, yeah, I don't know. I mean, I don't know if there's ever been any attacks by ghosts in public places, right, so to speak, or restaurants.
I think so. I think it's all... And you wonder about that because, I mean, you would think if they're real, there would be mad ghosts who are after people.
It's like the guy at table 54 that just every day comes, he's a ghost and just keeps sending back his steak. And
That would be a horrible...
It's a haunting.
If I were a ghost, I was in a restaurant, I wouldn't scare people. I would just do things that I would knock over a glass every once in a while or deflate souffles.
I'd just hang by the chef, be like, you're doing that wrong.
Turn the oven way down.
That looks terrible.
Just have fun with it. Have fun with it.
So in the second half of the show, we're going to talk to Leo York from the 13th Floor Podcast, and he studies this stuff, anything weird, anything paranormal, anything like that.
He loves being weird.
Loves being weird, and we love talking to people.
We love weird, but
what a different show.
Weird.
I like it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right,
fun.
We're going to take a quick break. We're going to come back, and the second half of this ghostly show next. It's Food News and Chews Radio. Hey, welcome back. It's Food News and Chews Radio. We were talking off the air about summer road trips and doing things, staycations. And our next guest
never thought about this.
Perfect for this topic because there are a lot of haunted places in Lexington.
In Kentucky.
In Kentucky, too. His name is Leo York. He hosts the 13th Floor Podcast. And it's all about the paranormal, and a lot of it's local paranormal, right? Hi, Leo.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Tell us generally about the 13th Floor Podcast and when you started it. And you're like international. I mean, you've got people from everywhere who listen to this thing.
It's been a really great, humbling experience. And thanks for having me, too.
Oh, very welcome.
But yeah, the 13th Floor, we're a paranormal podcast. We focus on conspiracies, cryptids, ghosts, UFOs, all things strange. And we try to take a more humorous approach to it.
So I'm gonna just go ahead and put this out there. This is the kind of stuff that I listen to, guys. Like this is my soap opera when I'm going to bed. Like you're gonna catch me on Ancient Aliens, any kind of UFO government conspiracy disclosure stuff. I'm all about it. In fact, I'm secretly probably just as informed as you are.
Oh man! Listen, I will tell you, you will probably have to pull me back because I believe in everything. Okay, it's all true.
I love it.
Now, your podcast focuses mainly on haunted stuff? Is it or is it kind of a good smattering of all things weird?
Okay.
It's pretty miscellaneous. It's got a unique quality to it. Every single episode we have is listener suggested. So we have a vase. People ask for things and we talk about them.
What's your most popular one? What's your most popular episode ever?
Funny enough, shout out to Don Skaggs of Inventors Network Kentucky, who I work with extensively.
Yeah, I've met him.
He requested OOPARTs, objects out of space and time.
Cool.
Or time and space.
What does that mean?
Like
What does
basically
that mean?
objects that shouldn't exist where they're found.
Exactly. So like you find a calculator in Greek ruins or a shovel that you carbon date to 10,000 years in Arizona.
Or pictures of guys with iPhones in the 1950s.
Right. Yeah. Photographs of people with nice sunglasses, modern sunglasses in the 40s. Yeah, things like that.
Oh.
Yeah, if you ever get bored, Google 1940s hipster.
Yeah, it's trippy.
Yeah. But there's a lot of people believe time travelers that, and that's very. So now, when it comes to the haunted locations around, do you go to any haunted location? Do you investigate these?
I investigate them as an amateur, as on a personal just love of that kind of stuff. But thus far, we've not really covered anything like on site, which we're looking to change soon.
Yeah, well, maybe we'll get all interested. Maybe we can all be Ghostbusters.
That sounds good.
Put on one of those uniforms, and get one of those old-fashioned cars and go for it.
I wonder out there in the ghost and paranormal world if there is something to a historic public place. A lot of old post offices, churches, buildings get turned into modern day restaurants and public places.
Right.
I wonder if there's any more draw to the paranormal world of having an audience, so to speak, or
Yeah.
Oh, interesting.
I mean,
you know-
because there's people there.
'Cause
They want to be around
Well,
other
and-
people.
right. You know,
And it's all kind of, there's a theme in all of these kind
Mm-hmm.
of things. It's doors slamming,
yeah.
women in white, apparition, you
Orbs,
know. or-
yeah. There's a lot of common threads.
Yeah, so why don't you tell
there's a
us
lot
about
of bread
some these?
recipes I think have ghosts in them because they're haunted.
Yeah,
They don't
well,
work.
food is, yeah.
Yeah, there's really 5 very notable haunted locations, and I'm probably going to go from least scary to scariest. One that I find really interesting would be the Sherman Tavern in Dry Ridge, and it got its start in 1812. Very old site, and it's funny when people think of Kentucky, they usually don't think about like the West, cowboys and Indians type stuff. But it was kind of the gateway to the West, and this tavern was a stopping point for people who were driving cattle and for American Indians who were trading in furs and whatnot. So it really was a place where cowboys and Indians could actually share a drink together.
Haberdashery.
Yeah, exactly. It's definitely the site of some notable spirits, mostly Confederate soldiers, slaves, and the occasional child. And as you mentioned, Sylvia, the poltergeist type
Yeah.
phenomena, a lot of knocking, footsteps, things rattling, things that are just kind of behaving the way that you don't expect an inanimate object to behave, whether it's moved
Things
or
move.
exactly.
Yeah, that's right.
So-
Now, this is, I think it is a museum now, right? Is
Yes,
it an
that's
it's
right.
not an active
Yeah.
restaurant.
I do think that you can get alcohol there, but I
Okay.
might be misremembering. Pretty
Maybe
sure.
that helps to see those ghosts if you
Yeah,
have a little
exactly.
alcohol.
Yeah,
you
spirits
know?
with the spirits.
Well, you
Yeah.
think that kind of helps to open up the whether you think it's a portal or whether you think it's like a there's a lot of theories on haunting. Some people believe it's residual energy left over
Sure,
from something
yeah.
that happened. Some
Right.
people believe all time
Lots of-
exists at the same time, so you're really just seeing
Yeah.
through a dimension.
Murdered
That's my
people.
take on
Yeah.
it too, incidentally.
Murdered
Yeah.
people that's whose
Interdimensional.
souls are unsettled.
Yeah.
Wow.
You know,
And then
that's
some
a-
people believe, your souls are unsettled and they have business, and there's a lot of theories.
There's one place in Lexington I thought was interesting, the Mansion. If you've been in the Mansion, the big out at the Marriott, the Blue Room is where a young girl, Greta, committed suicide. It's not an eating place, but there are receptions that you go in there and you can feel the chill in the air and noises and stuff. So just fascinating.
So I said that question a little while ago about the audience because in my personal experience, okay, so in when I was training in Charleston, South Carolina, it's an original colony, right? So the building Magnolia's restaurant in where I worked was one of the original post offices, right? So we're talking pretty old building. And along with that, and Merrick Inn, which kind of has an old building,
Yeah.
and also Murray's, where I worked out on Harrisburg Road, was an old school. And these are all, what do you call those buildings that are protected by
Like
historical
yeah.
preservation? So, I mean, they have history schools, post offices. And, man, I heard some pretty interesting things through the years. Being
Yeah,
the
sure.
chef, I'm often the last one out, first one in.
Yeah.
Some of the bathrooms
Did you ever hear?
upstairs at
Yeah.
Murray's. Now the basement at Merrick Inn, if you go down there, there is a cellar area. Then it breaks off into 2 rooms, and then in one of those back rooms, there's a portal to a door, and in there it goes to a dirt floor. And there's a really mysterious area back there, and I always heard noises
heard
coming
things?
from
Interesting.
that
You always heard things.
room, man. And it's weird. No, back to it though. I never ever heard any ghosts or any paranormal, and I have to this day in a kitchen. What is that? Is it high activity, or is
Well,
it maybe
it
just the
seems like it's
kitchen's
in
a happy
quiet
place
places.
usually?
That's
It's
kinda
in
what I'm
quiet
thinking.
Places,
Yeah,
maybe.
exactly, yeah.
Or in the night.
Yeah,
when everything's
places,
still.
But think about it, like the place
Yeah.
you go in a house is a kitchen.
Is a kitchen.
Yeah.
You
But
gravitate
it's a
there.
habit.
That's where
the attic is the most likely to be weird, and it's the least inhabited.
But
So I
it's
think
generally
part of the
happy
reason-
places.
Yeah.
or
I think part of the
kitchens,
reason
yeah.
is, if you believe it, I believe that a lot of things we sense, maybe we don't understand, are just vibrational. And a kitchen in a commercial place is a very vibrational place. It's buzzing.
Oh,
There's
yeah.
lots
Yeah.
of activity.
So you might not be able to hear a ghost.
you might not be
because-
here. They also might not want to be around them.
yeah, that's what I was
Yeah.
thinking. It's like a scarecrow for spirits.
Exactly.
So maybe
Yeah.
like you need to be in a bake shop or like
Okay.
souffles or baking.
I
It's
think
not-
they-
Leo, do
They
you
crave
believe in
peace.
ghosts?
Oh yes, 100%.
You do.
Yeah.
You believe in aliens?
I do, yeah. On the show, funny enough, our dynamic,
Interdimensional.
Alex is the skeptic, Cece's in the middle, and I'm the guy who buys all of it.
Got it all.
I love that.
Are you more like extraterrestrial, interdimensional being?
I think both are equally conceivable. I do think just in terms of like the limits and constraints of technology, the odds that they're from just a distant star is unlikely. What's more likely is they're capable of interdimensional travel.
Yeah.
So-
Do you have, when you say you believe in ghosts, have you seen them yourself?
When I was growing up, our house had a poltergeist.
Did it really?
We called him Albert. We were very familiar with him. One of my favorite things ever was having sleepovers because inevitably we'd bring it up. Some kid would say they didn't believe in him, and the minute they did, stuff would happen. Lights would flicker, doors would open, the works. He really liked people to
And
take
what
note
was
of
his
him.
history? Did he live?
We have no idea. In fact, the only reason we call him Albert is we were experimenting with names, and that was the name that made him stop just making a lot of noise one day.
Really?
So
Because
that
you
was-
called him Albert.
Because we called him Albert. He was definitely a boy because this is another fun thing he would do. We had a bathroom right at the entrance to the house, and occasionally the door would close on its own, and you could attribute that. Oh, well, that's
Yeah,
just
the settling of the house,
The settling of the
yeah.
house, air pressure. But then the toilet would flush, and that's okay.
Oh,
that's
no.
a little weirder.
That's
but
a little
sometimes
weirder.
toilets do that. But then when you'd open the door, if the seat was down, the seat would be up. So we're under the
No
impression it was a boy
joke.
ghost. So yeah.
So I wonder what other Kentucky restaurants
Yeah, tell
should
us
we
more.
visit
Tell
for
us some more.
paranormal activity? You know, we should put together some kind of ghost dinner tour
That would be
That would be
awesome.
fun.
with ghostly dishes like spooky spaghetti and.
Yeah. What's another one?
Well, LaGrange has an interesting one called Rails, and it's a very old building too. It's over 150 years old, and it's a little unique in that it has a notable spirit with a name like Albert. There was a little girl who in the 1800s, her name was Jenny, and she died of typhoid fever. And a number of people claim to have seen Jenny. There's a number of people who claim to have been pranked by Jenny. There's a number of people who, upon being pranked by Jenny, like an object missing or something moving, will hear the laughter of an 8-year-old girl.
Really?
Little kids are creepy.
Yes.
I have
you-
two little kids. I'm telling you, they're creepy.
Yeah.
When they, you have kids. You ever like walk past their room in the middle of the night when they're sleeping and you just hear like giggling?
That's scary.
Yeah, it's a scary thing. Yeah. So, are there any notable haunted places around town in Lexington?
I'm not very aware of too
Yeah,
many
there
places.
are.
Oh, here we
There's a
go.
long list. But I want to hear the restaurants first from
Okay,
you,
sure.
and then we can talk about there's 9 official ones.
Ah,
there's 9.
interesting.
One of them is the mansion out at Merrick, at
At Griffin Gate?
Griffin Gate. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. So let's hear about the restaurants.
Okay, can do. This one's a little bit of a short one, but in Paducah there's a place called Shandy's, and it used to be called C.C. Cohen's. And the last surviving Cohen of the line, Stella Cohen Payne, she lived in a little apartment just above the restaurant, which has since, as I said, been renamed to Shandy's. Well, she died, and in this case, usually there's something really scary and unusual, but this seems to have just been a totally natural death. But ever since her death, people have seen her. People have seen her, especially in photographs, her silhouette in the upstairs area where she died. And most interesting, and there's no other instances of this as I'm aware in any of the restaurants I'm covering, is people see odd distortions in mirrors and reflections at Shandy's. They'll see, for example, her reflection. They'll see distorted reflections, things like that. So mirrors don't act quite right for some people when they visit.
Have you ever, anybody ever heard in a family member in your house that you realized wasn't quite where they should be after they died?
Oh, so yes.
Have
Very
you?
much so.
I
yeah.
had I had that experience with my mother, and
Yeah.
she was very unsettled in her final days. She was fearful of dying, and I think she was an unsettled soul because there were signs that
Interesting.
she was visiting me, just little things.
Sure.
And I don't know why some people become ghosts and some people don't.
Sure.
Yeah.
I mean, my father died more easily, and I never sensed he was with me afterwards, but I did my mother. And so you had an experience too?
Yeah. My mother and I talk about that about my father, who I lost back last
Yeah.
August, and it's not more like a haunting, or that my father was always
Well, it
just
has a bad
overly
connotation,
protective of
but
my
yeah.
mother and always very concerned about her well-being. Whether it's changing a tire or a
Mm-hmm.
light bulb, right? Sure. And so she feels like he hasn't left yet. He's still there. And he's not
Protecting her.
going to until she knows she's.
Yeah.
He's
Well,
okay.
hauntings have a bad connotation because sometimes they're not bad. I mean,
absolutely.
my mother, one day there was no wind and she always wore a sun visor, blew it off. I was feeling sorry for myself over and visiting her grave, and a sudden gust of wind blew my visor off. And I know she was doing that.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is important research for the culinary field too, because think about all the grandmas and lifelong recipes that have been lost. That I need to find a way to communicate with Colonel
Seances.
Sanders.
What's in the cookies now?
Have you done a seance?
I have.
And did you?
Reese?
Oh, yeah, very weird stuff. For one thing, we did this a few times, me and my sisters, and my older sister would always lead it. And every time we would do it, the sky could be clear as a bell and it would storm.
Really?
Oh, it was very unusual.
Wow.
And yeah, we would definitely have notable experiences with sounds and things of
Is
that
that
sort
right?
during it. Yeah.
Sometimes they say a person has to almost be like a medium. There has
Yeah.
to be a person
I think
that
you have
has
to be
that
open.
ability.
I think you have to be open
I think that's
to
it.
it.
Yeah.
I think that's so. My grandmother actually. This is a long story. Long story than my grandmother practiced a Sicilian version of voodoo, and it's the only way to describe
wow.
it.
Okay.
Yeah. And she used to hold seances and do
Really?
stuff like that.
Probably
Yeah.
Gabagool.
Yeah. It really.
It's like something like that.
There's the Agordina. There's that. There's a
Oh,
lot
really?
of. Yeah. No, that's the thing. So anyway,
Interesting.
so growing up, we had weekly seances.
Did
in
you
my house.
really? Well, no wonder you're so weird.
100% weird things happen.
Did you hear what I said?
Yeah.
No
I heard
wonder
you.
you're so
No,
weird.
trust me, I am weirder than you even think.
Fascinating.
Yeah. So, as I understand it, because Sicily is so close to the tip of Africa,
Yeah.
a lot of the traditions went back and forth.
Right.
And there is just sort of like Santeria
Yep.
for Cuba. There's an Italian form of that exists in the southern part of Italy where my grandmother's from.
Did she do potions? And
She did
Yeah.
no. She did hexes.
hexes and
She did
curses?
hexes, evil eye, and
Curses?
and the evil eye.
We're
had
going
a
to talk
name.
about that in the next half
it's
hour.
Weird.
Yeah.
It's weird stuff.
Interesting.
Yeah,
both,
definitely.
Both my grandparents, my maternal grandma and my paternal grandpa were what were called root workers, which is just hillbilly witchcraft, really.
Yeah.
Right,
And,
yeah.
And you said you were just on a podcast
called
what?
Hillbilly Horror Stories. Yeah, check it out. It was
Hillbilly
fantastic.
horror stories.
Yeah.
And what are they, like murders that never were solved?
They
or-
talk about a variety of things, and funny enough, we talked about one of my big passions, which is just bugs. We talked about invertebrates and the weird aspects of all the creatures with more than 4 legs. So
See, I love that. I think the witchcraft potions kind of thing bridges this into like culinary too, because I don't know much about hexes and whatever, but I love reading through like the Foxfire books and Appalachian
Yeah.
regional
Yes.
things where
And there's a
you're
lot
talking
of
about
that, witchcraft,
tonics
yeah.
and elixirs and natural
Yeah.
products that you can make. And honestly, guys, this kind of so-called witchcraft is alive and well today.
is
I
alive
mean,
and
it's
well.
basically your beauty
Chef,
counter. Like
it was-
apothecaries
Chef,
across the nation are
you
doing
go.
that.
Let me ask you this, Chef. Why is sage always an ingredient?
I've
So
wondered
there's
that
a
for
lot of
years.
religious stuff behind sage, right?
It's
Saging a
universal,
room.
though.
and
That's
it's
the weird
universal.
part. Like you can find that
Dressing
in every
at
tradition,
Thanksgiving.
though.
Tastes
So,
great.
but here's the thing. So there's actually, and I think a lot of what people thought was magic was science they didn't quite understand yet, a lot of the potions. So now there's actually science behind sage. And so I was reading an article a couple years ago that if you they say burning sage cleanses.
Right.
Well, they found that burning sage actually has antibacterial properties and literally does cleanse the area
Well-
not of spirits but of things like
Pathogens.
disease and
Bacteria.
bacteria.
Yeah.
So there's some truth to it, although we
Interesting.
might not
well,
understand
someone
it.
was putting a curse on someone the other day in my writing class, and she used sage.
Yeah.
And I mean, this was a bad curse. She wanted this person to drop dead.
Excuse me,
It was
this is a real thing?
She claimed she needed to see a lawyer before anybody else heard this story, but. Yeah, so she did. She actually like burned sage and all kinds of stuff and followed directions on the internet for a curse.
Interesting.
To put a curse on this person. Anyway, restaurants.
bad recipe.
Oh, yeah, sure.
I told you we get off on tangents.
No worries. Well, Old Talbot Tavern in
Oh, yeah.
Bardstown is another good example of an old establishment. And it has probably, at least for this list, the most diverse array of phenomena. You've got the orbs, you've got the rattling furniture, you've got things falling over, poltergeist stuff, in other words, footsteps and all that. But you also have 3 notable spirits. There's a lady in white that a lot of people claim to have seen. There's a fellow that one woman claims that she recognized from a documentary as Jesse James. And Jesse James had, in fact, visited the establishment. In fact, he was reputed to have shot 3 bullets in the wall to prove that he was there on one occasion. But unfortunately, that portion of the building has burnt down, so we don't have that anymore. But one notable spirit doesn't have an actual name, but a cook is the first person to have seen him. A cook at the establishment claims that he saw a fella in a long gray duster jacket, which is what they just called him, the man in the gray jacket. And this was corroborated on a separate occasion by the bookkeeper of the establishment. So they both saw the same guy, unaware, and then later corroborated their own stories.
Oh,
Oh,
how
my
fascinating.
God.
And I love their menu. It's the Jesse James ribeye and
Nice.
the Lincoln barbecue ribs. And it's named after these notable
Interesting.
people.
Yeah.
So anyway, it's just
So
sounds
what,
like a lot of fun.
we got a couple minutes left. What are some of the haunted places in Lexington that are notably haunted?
Yeah, I've got a list of 9, and let's go into. They're not all of them restaurants. Some of them are really known, like Transy and the Ruffin, a curse that's been put on. But how do people find 13th Floor? What can they do to find 13th
You
Floor?
can find us anywhere you listen to music, really, or podcasts, Spotify, Apple, the works, just whatever your preferred platform is. Just look for the red, black, and white logo that says the 13th Floor.
And yes, and how many followers do you have?
Oh, I don't actually know, but they're all over the world, and we get a lot of engagement. It's been very humbling and very fun to get. I mean, today, for example, I got 2 messages from 2 people, not even requesting an episode. They just wanted to talk about something paranormal that they'd come across.
Any country that contributes more than
We're
each?
definitely more America heavy, but we've got people all over. We've had we got a review from Japan recently, and a lot of listeners in England and Germany.
How long did it take you to build it to this level?
Oh, it took a couple of years to get to this level, and then we went on hiatus for a long time, and I'm very grateful. My co-host had a baby. Very grateful that our listeners have really stuck with us, even though we had
Well,
a
it's such
9
an
month.
intriguing topic.
Oh, thank you.
I love it. Yeah, and then we will. I love our partnership.
Yeah,
we'll have to hear from
likewise.
you again because we could hear from you again at Halloween.
Ooh, that'd be great.
It's summer vacations now, but scaring
Yes.
people to death at Halloween.
I
is
know
fun.
just
more
what to talk
research
about.
on potions and witchcraft.
Yeah, yeah.
There's a lot of things that you could do in the kitchen that would be maybe based in potions or witchcraft, but things that we actually would still eat and enjoy now. Right?
That's what we're going to talk about.
Yeah, we're going to have some ingredients.
I like that.
We
All right.
might even build a curse here. If you
never know.
got a list of people you
Stranger
want to
things
curse.
have happened. All right,
Yeah.
the 13th Floor podcast. Get it wherever you get podcasts. Thank you, Leo. Thank you so much for coming on the show today.
Thanks so much for having me.
Yeah,
All right,
thank
back
you.
in a moment. Food News and Shoes Radio.